Hello everyone, welcome back to the next episode of the Road to FIDE Master series. This is the episode number 90, nice and round, and let's see if the round number 8 from the Prague Open was also so nice. In that one I got paired with white pieces against Jakub Jiricek from Czech Republic, rated just above 2000, and if you watched my two videos on Thursday and Friday, you will remember that the key word for both of them was frustration. Therefore, before this game, since for the past 4 games in a row, I was preparing for hours and hours in the mornings, and then in the very end, especially in the last round, I've blundered twice, not allowing myself to win the game. Therefore, I decided that okay, enough of chess, I need to relax a little bit. So the preparation for this game were like this. I went for a walk around Prague city. I walked for like 15 kilometers and that's it. No chess, just sightseeing, just chilling and trying to rest from chess, trying to tire myself, let's say physically, to be mentally tougher. And let's see how it resolved itself. I started with d4 then. After e4 there was a little bit more fury. Yes, I told you that I have rested from chess, but not 100%. You know, I had to spend this 1% at least to know what is my opponent usually playing. So I decided, okay, I will just play d4, go into some usual Karlsbad structure. That's it. I don't care. But after knight c3, knight f6, it just struck me that instead of going for cd5, bishop g5 that I would normally do, but just all of a sudden I decided, okay, let's play knight f3, bishop f4, because why not, right? This is what chess about is in the end, to have fun, to try out things. So I decided, okay, let's do it that way, even though I believe that I have not played it once ever in any rated game of any time control, but here we are, right? My opponent chose castle. I played e3 thinking, okay, I have good position. My opponent went into c5 move, which is still the main fury. I just did not know that at the time because I don't know any fury in here. And I was debating whether should I take on d5 or c5 or leave it as it is. And I have decided that a nice combination of moves will be dc, bishop c5 and then a3, trying to kick away at the bishop, and apparently it's the main choice, main line, let's say. So I was proud later on when I checked that indeed, just with a little bit of thinking, I managed to, let's say, find the main line. In here, I believe that my goal was that once I have a3, I have the coverage of the b4 square. So I was in here kind of slightly worried that after this and that, since my knight will be exchanged on d5, this diagonal might be a little bit problematic. So a3 it is, covering the square, and once my opponent will not take me, I will take him. So imagine this situation, I would take, play bishop e2 most likely. And as you can tell, if you follow me closely, I always love some isolated pawn structure, doesn't matter the side I am on, so I would be okay. But my opponent took me on c4 immediately, which I was also fine with because I did not waste a tempo to go to e2 in between. I just simply took the pawn and I claimed somewhat a little bit better development out of the opening. Still we are in fury, so it follows as a6, castle, b5. I just dropped the bishop to d3. I was debating whether should I go here or there. Bishop a2 looks funny, one good thing about it. Otherwise, it has some possibility to either stay on this diagonal if needed, or reroute itself to b1 and hit the diagonal from this side once the rook obviously develops itself to either c or d open file. But in the end I decided, okay, I will just drop it back to d3 immediately, and that was an okay decision, I guess. In here my opponent chose bishop b7, usual stuff, rook c8, rook c1, sorry, usual stuff. At this point the only games that I've seen from masters were including knight b to d7 move. Instead of doing that, because it covers the bishop, my opponent went away with the bishop itself to e7. And even though it's an okay move, there were no more, let's say, master games in here. Still my, let's say, development was easy. Queen e2 making way for the other rook, and after knight b to d7, rook d1 it is. And as I've said a few moves back, I believed that this position is slightly better for me because I have a slightly better development. My queen has moved and my rooks are connected and placed on the open files. Opponent cannot tell the same about his situation. In here I believed that since I have just put the rook onto the open file, queen has to go somewhere. Queen b6 looked like a good square. Because it's not hit there, I am in no place and situation to attack it even. So in here I would have to think of what to do. I believe that my initial idea afterwards would be to think of e4. For me, since I am the isolated queen's pawn structure lover, it was somewhat counterintuitive, because in those when the pawn is there, let's say, the bishop in here is just amazing one, right? So this was my goal. However, with the pawn structure like this, it might have been somewhat beneficial to me to think of e4 move with the follow-up of e5, trying to grab some space. So I would be, debating within my own mind what to do if this move would indeed happen, but my opponent played rook c8 and I was like, leaving the queen there, I mean, okay, let's check this out, because after knight e5, putting more pressure, already black has some tactical problems, because knight e5 loses basically on the spot due to the usual stuff, discovery, attack, and that's that, right? So I played knight e5, knowing that it's not like winning the game, but putting, some pressure to the opponent. And to my big surprise, he just played queen b6 now, going away from the pressure along the d file, and he felt confident, he got up, he went for a walk, no big deal. But for me, it was like, wait, I need to, do this with the eyes. I'm not sure how to say it in English, because once I put more pressure onto the d7 knight, thanks to the fact that I knew I have those possibilities of discoveries, yes, the queen is gone, but the knight is still there and might be attacked. So immediately after split of a second, let's say, I spotted that there are some tricks connected to bishop takes h7 check, and apparently I can make them in both move orders. So either take the knight first and then take with the bishop, or the other way around, take the bishop with the bishop and then the knight. So in here, funnily enough, even though I splitted the motif in split of a second, it took me quite a while before I played that move, and my frustration was rising, guys, because my opponent, as I've said, was confident, just went for a walk, indicating that he had no clue it's coming on. Like how can you miss that, right? As a 2000 player, but he missed that, at least that's what I believe. And on top of that, even though he missed it, it's not that bad for him. This is why the frustration came. If it was the blitz game, I would take, no questions asked. But since it was classical, I was like, okay, let's make sure it works. And the longer I fought, the less sure I was about it. Why? Instead of just trying to visualize things for you, I will just play out the moves. So imagine that I take here first and then there, and I believe this is the best move order. Otherwise, it would first of all perhaps lead to the very same thing after this, and after knight takes h7, it's not that great as you may think, because there is some queen c6 possible hitting here and there. Maybe it's not good for me. So instead of debating whether or not it's good and how to evaluate the other scenario, whatnot, I decided, okay, keep it simple, let's calculate what happens in here. So in here I can take back the knight with two ways, either take with the rook or give a check with the queen and then take with the queen. Doing it that way, I did not like that much, because queen in here does not feel safe. After bishop f6, rook f to d8 is incoming, and basically my queen is trapped. So I would have to go back, be attacked, go back. So yes, I got the pawn, but at the same time I have wasted 4 moves that allowed my opponent to finish development. He has the bishop pair, he has some active b4 possibility, trying to disrupt my situation along the queen side. So I was, in my thought process as deep as in here, even deeper, trying to determine concretely whether or not this queenside situation could be resolved, but I saw no such way. So obviously, therefore, at this point, I considered rook takes d7 mostly, but the problem with that move is similar one to the that you saw with the knight being there. So queen c6 hitting the rook and threatening with checkmate. So I cannot make use of the fact that the bishop was not protected. And already as of now, if you are not aware, you can think, okay, I am losing. Thankfully, I was not, because I can now give a check, not to take the knight, but rather protect the rook. And since the king obviously has to step back, now I have a moment of my own to try to protect before the checkmate comes. So I would be able to play either e4 or f3 moves. Both of them had some drawbacks, at least in my eyes, especially at first. Therefore, I really needed some time to evaluate whether is it something that I want to do and want to go into or not. F3 move was a one that I disliked due to the fact that it undermined the e3 pawn. If so, the bishop too. So if the pressure would be put onto the pawn due to the bishop being there or the queen or something, I could have imagined a scenario where even some crazy idea like g5 might be happening, you know, kicking away my bishop, making the use of the pawn. And if I would like to push f3 and then e4, yes, I have a good pawn chain completely blocking this diagonal, but at the same time completely opening up my king too. So once more, connected to the fact that the bishop pair is there, the files in the center are opened. I was not sure if I liked it, therefore e4 would be my choice. Due to the fact that it does not yet weaken the dark squares around the king, it blocks the attack too. One drawback of this variation was that after ideas of b4 or bishop f6, either now or a little bit later on, I felt like the pressure to the knight would also result in the pressure to the pawn. So that's why I needed to figure out whether or not this pawn will survive. And indeed, I felt like it's okay. I calculated the line as follows: rook to d8. I wanted to take, and then go to g3 with the queen. So making use of the fact that the third rank has opened, with the idea that if I would play it somewhat, let's say, passively, indeed the b4 move or some taking overs along the open files and whatever was not that appealing to me. And queen g3 creates some counterplay of my own, because at some points I have bishop e5 move, which would then threaten with the checkmate, which would then make the opponent play g6 move, weakening the dark squares, or f6 move, weakening the light squares. Bishop f6 would not be possible due to the pin. Bishop f8 would be passive. On top of that, already in here I have some possibilities of knight d5, since then I would be opening up the attack here, creating the attack there. My rook would be protected there. The knight would be blocking the rook, because it's important, since I cannot play, let's say, knight e2 due to the queen c1, knight c1, rook d1 checkmate. So all of that stuff, all of it, I had to include in calculation at this point, because if I would not calculate until I would know for sure that my position is better and I can take the pawn and claim it as the advantage for a longer period of time, I would just not go for it. I would just try to continue the position as it looks as of now, to try to keep as many pieces on the board as possible and continue, let's say, in the calmer approach. And all of this while my opponent is just walking by on the playing hall, having a relaxed time, right? So yeah, frustration kicked in, but I put it aside. I calculated everything till the end, to the knight d5 crazy stuff, to the queen g3, all of it, 7-8 moves ahead. And yeah, I did it. I took, he took, I took, he took, I took. First surprise, he did not play queen c6, which just screams to be played, to be honest, in my eyes at least. He played bishop f6. Also, this was the move I included in my calculations, surely, because the whole point of this variation was that the bishop is attacked, and as I've said, queen c6 was one indirect, let's say, way of protecting the bishop. Bishop f6 that happened in the game was a direct one, so also I included this in the calculations, but I just felt that this is the move that is much worse than the queen c6, because it does not put enough pressure onto me, because I have a very important resource. Instead of trying to focus on passively, let's say, passive defense of the knight, I just played rook c to d1, inviting my opponent to take it. Why? Because if that would have happened, opponent is getting rid of his one and only advantage, which was the bishop pair. I also am without one of my advantages, not all but one, which was the pawn advantage, but otherwise practically in terms of the activity and whatnot, I have still tremendous initiative. I can give a check, I can play bishop e5, hit there, threaten with some bishop g7 checks. I've calculated some lines in which I already could have gotten something along those lines, right? Obviously in here it might not be working, and also I believe I omitted the checkmate simpler version of just queen g5 and no stopping checkmate along the dark squares, but this is my point. Like without that dark square, without any other defensive piece around its own king, taking on c3 would be a very, very bad choice. So I'm not sure if bishop f6 was played purely due to defensive, let's say, reasons to just protect the bishop, or was it a combination of both defensive and attacking? But hello, I invite you to take the knight, right? I played rook c to d1, solidifying my rooks onto the open file, let's say. And still queen c6 would be a good way to coordinate the position, to threaten with me a little bit, making me maybe play this move or the other. But my opponent, instead of doing that, played bishop c6. And I was like, okay, I will just, drop back the rook that I wanted to drop back. Anyways, I went to d3 with now ideas of playing e4, queen h5, rook h3, checkmating the opponent basically. So always nice. And yeah, the next move will show you guys that my opponent was just under the weather that day because of some reason or the other, because he played b4. And I was like, once more in the game, wait, what? I took, he took, and bishop d6. And I'm like, really? Like, just like that, you blundered? Like, previous one, I mean, okay, might have been omitted, whatever. I don't know, long move, three moves combination, then some implications afterwards. But in here, like, nothing is happening, completely nothing. So yeah, bizarre scenario. I obviously did not complain. Queen went away, I took the rook. I made my advantage even bigger, and I'm cruising, right? I played e4 as I wanted to in order to put the rook onto the h file. Queen got away, but I gave the check anyway. King went to g8. And how can I and do I want to win this game? First of all, I would like to take the pawn on a6, because I don't know, maybe with the bishop pair, if I would lose the pawn, this might be an annoying one. And on top of that, I am not threatened with any checkmate, any problem whatsoever, to be honest. So I took. If the bishop c3 would have happened, I could take it back or take on c6. Everything is basically winning. I believe I just wanted to play it very simple like that, and then just focus on exchanging the rooks and the queens and winning or something. But after queen takes a6, my opponent played queen c5. I would have played a flawless game if I would realize that I can take the bishop within 2 moves, which is funny because my opponent is blundering so much that at this very point I kind of got to his level in a sense, because yes, he's protecting the bishop, but if you think about it, I am protecting all the squares that he can go to around it basically. So everything is taken, and the knight is protected most importantly. So after b4 move, deflecting the queen, I would be getting the bishop. So yeah, funny stuff. I didn't find it. I went for some more complex, let's say, kind of the tactic, because I played queen d3, willing to do the discovery attack to the bishop and the king, inviting my opponent to play rook d8, after which I would just simply try to checkmate him and win the game. He played g6 for that reason, stopping this e5 discovery attack. But in here I chose queen d6, so I wanted to force my opponent to exchange queens in this scenario. He went away, I attacked him, he went away. Every time he was glued to the bishop, right, protecting it. And as of now I chose knight d5, and this was, I'm not actually sure if the move that I saw when playing queen d3 or just moments afterwards, but it's funny that I can see such a move and not before, right? Move beforehand. So yeah, funny stuff. Obviously the point is that the bishop cannot take due to the queen hanging, if the pawn takes, I can take the bishop and then deliver the checkmate like that. So the knight is great in here, putting pressure there, threatening with this and whatnot. And my opponent after bishop g5, queen e5, I did not even care about the fork, I cared about the king himself itself. Finally resigned, then he could have done that really like around 5 moves ago, but okay, we've all been there after terrible game. We wanted to play at least a little bit more, so what can I tell you guys? The experiment worked. I had as little chess during the day as possible, went for a walk, cleared my mind, played something I don't normally play, just played chess, got a little bit better position out of the opening, then my opponent blundered once, twice, I won the game mostly effortlessly, and that's really appreciated after those 2 harsh games, 2 harsh evenings. And yeah, with a little bit better mood, I was heading into the final game of the tournament that you will see analysis of tomorrow, so don't miss out. From what I can tell you, it's going to be another very long, very instructive battle, so stay tuned for it. As for this game, that's all. I hope you liked it the same way I did, and if so, remember to also leave a like under the video. As of now, thank you all for watching, we'll see each other tomorrow, bye bye.